Hello, all. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to F50 Global Capital Summit Austin 2021. I'm Srinath here, representing Spring Up Capital India, partner to the F50 Global Summit program. This is a great program, and we have today Mr. Vikram Gupta, MD and founder and MD of IvyCap Ventures from India. Vikram Gupta has spent a lot of time in finance industry and the investment background from the startup ecosystem, and definitely he has seen how the India's growth story. And today, I welcome Mr. Vikram Gupta to F50 Global Summit Austin 2021 program India track. Mr. Vikram, Srinath here. I represent for Spring Up Capital India, and we are partnered with F50 team to host this India track. We are very excited and happy to invite you, and the platform now actually to you, Vikram, and you can take over. Thank you very much, and happy to hear from you.
Thanks, Srinath, and it's my pleasure to be part of this F50 Global Capital Summit. And my good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone who's listening to this. So let me first of all just give you a brief background about what I do, and then I will give you a perspective of where we are with respect to the India story, and then maybe also talk a little bit more about where are we headed from here with respect to the investments in the India startup ecosystem and what's happening overall in the bigger picture with respect to the COVID situation and the overall growth of investments and the startups in India with respect to other geographies. My name is Vikram Gupta, as Srinath mentioned. I founded a venture capital fund called IvyCap Ventures. We manage over $200 million of assets. We have a portfolio of about 30 companies. We invest at Series A mostly to Series B with a ticket size of up to 10 million. We usually invest in technology companies or tech-enabled companies, and we've been investing now, starting to invest rather from our Fund 3, which is another $200 million fund. So that's broadly the background, and I think it's also relevant to mention in terms of how our investment model works. We actually have a slightly different approach to investing with the IIT Alumni ecosystem as a platform working with us. So I will explain. IITs are like the MITs in the US. It's a very, very elite engineering institutions in India with a global alumni base of almost about 500,000, or 23 campuses in India. 2/3 of the unicorns in India are actually founded by the IIT alumni. And even globally, if you rank the unicorns based on the backgrounds of the founders, you will see that the IIT founded unicorns will rank fourth. So it makes a lot of sense to actually bring together the alumni of these institutions and look at investing, especially when you look at Series A investing, and we've actually created that unique model right from the day one of our conceptualization. We devised a model where we said that a significant part of our carry, which is a profit generated by the fund, goes back as endowments to the IITs, which is a very unique model and has never been done as per our understanding globally. And that also led to the formation of India's first endowment fund at IIT Delhi, which is one of the best known IITs in the world. So that model, in fact, has actually led to the creation of this endowment ecosystem in India. In fact, before this, there was no structured endowment ecosystem in the country, and now that is encouraging further um innovation and entrepreneurship in the country, especially coming across the campuses, the engineering and the management campuses in India. Let me give you a brief overview of where we stand when it comes to India as a country in terms of the opportunity and the position where it is with respect to the startup ecosystem. I think we all know that India is a very sizable country in terms of the population, 1.4 billion people, and of course, even in terms of number of startups, India is the third largest startup nation in the world, with more than 50,000 registered startups. And also, if you look at the number of unicorns in India, with unicorns, I think we all know, defined as $1 billion in valuation of startups. And we've already crossed 50 unicorns as of now. In fact, just this year, 2021, we added 15 more unicorns to the list. Given the growth of the number of unicorns, we believe that this number will cross 100 in the next 2 to 3 years itself. So that's the kind of growth that India is seeing in terms of the number of startups, number of unicorns. And I think, you know, I believe that we hit a point of inflection very recently, even though COVID was actually not a very good thing to happen to the world, with so many people getting affected health wise and otherwise as well. There's been substantial changes in terms of how the consumers are buying and how a new evolution has happened in terms of the technology world. And we've seen COVID actually becoming uh, an accelerator itself for speeding up the progress of the technology startups. So I'll cover that as well. But if you look at the number of cases in India, and especially recently, when the second wave was happening, that was something of a huge concern. Even though in the first wave, when that happened last year around March, April, uh, that was, of course, a little less impactful in terms of the actual lives lost or pressure on the healthcare infrastructure. The second wave, which happened in April and part of May, was a very serious one. That actually led to the infrastructure really getting tested or stress tested. And of course, there was a lot of worry in the system about where is this going, and hopefully now, and fortunately now, uh, things are getting back on track. And of course, even if you compare the numbers, of course, the total number of cases in India is pretty high, the second largest number of cases in the world. I think the interesting part is the recovery rate is also very high. Close to 3 million people got, I think about 3% of the population, or is the one which is left as still affected. So 97% recovery rate has already happened, which is actually a very, very strong indication of things getting back on track. Even though there is a fear that there will be a third wave that might happen sometime around November or December of this year. But hopefully that the impact of that should be lesser than what happened in the second wave, primarily because of the reason that the vaccination drive in India has taken a substantial pace. We are seeing now a significant percentage of the population is now getting vaccinated. The corporate India, the housing societies, and various other NGOs and other groups have started vaccinating their groups and extended families, and that is actually leading to a much faster vaccination drive. So I think hopefully if a significant part of the population gets vaccinated, I think there's an estimate that almost about close to 250 million to 300 million people are getting vaccinated as we speak. We do understand that the extent and the size of the population is such that the it's a logistical challenge. So it's not easy to get the entire population of 1.4 billion vaccinated. But it's a huge task that I think the government of India and the corporates and the citizens of India have actually taken it as a challenge. And hopefully that would improve the situation quite substantially. But, with respect to the startup ecosystem, this has actually created a new set of opportunities for the startups. In fact, what we noticed is that the size of the population, which is now getting online, from offline to online, has substantially increased over the last 1.5 years. The number of people who are already online has already exceeded 750 million people. The number of internet users is already reached about 650 million, and that's pretty sizable number. And this offers an opportunity for very large consumer base in India. So the other interesting thing that has happened is, historically, the older population in India, which was not used to shopping online or doing digital transactions, there is a substantial shift which is happening as we speak. People ordering online, people doing their banking transactions online, and doing lots of other activities online, which is a substantial uh, shift with respect to the startups. It offers a huge opportunity, and I think most of this growth has happened in the last 18 months itself. And all these 50 unicorns you're talking about, and the next wave of companies which are valued between 100 million to $1 billion, which is again a pretty sizable number, are mostly targeting customers digitally, or have digital business models, or businesses related to latest technologies. The new wave of startups are focusing on utilization of artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, of course, blockchain technologies, machine learning. So all these technologies are now being very actively used in the next wave of startups, which is actually also fundamentally changing the customer behavior. And I believe that this is going to offer much more opportunities for the upcoming startups. Another thing which we are noticing at IvyCap also is seeing, as the startups are growing, the time to becoming unicorns is actually shrinking. Historically, we've seen that there are quite a few startups which have maybe taken 10 years, 15 years, to become unicorns. I think that time will shrink to about 7 years, 8 years, to become unicorns, given the speed of access to the market and opening up of new markets. Of course, there's a huge market out there which is in rural India. Uh, Almost 2/3 of the population, or over 60% of the population is in rural India, and quite a few initiatives are happening to bring the rural population online, and that will bring the last consumers online as well over a shorter period of time, which is going to create much larger opportunities for startups to reach the next set of customers. Of course, there are challenges with respect to the how the market is segmented in India. Of course, it's not a uniform market. There are different cultures, different habits, different spending behaviors. different approaches to buying things when you go from north to south or east to west in India. So therefore, it's almost like dealing with 30 plus different countries. When you go from one state to the other state, it's a huge population with divided into multiple states. So it's not easy in that sense, but at the same time, it is an opportunity for various startups and even investors. Of course, if you look at the overall scene of the investments in India, the investments in startups just this year, if you look at 2021, if you look at the numbers, I think over $8 billion has already been invested in the country in startups. And I think this space is getting accelerated in terms of the investments going into startups. We are also seeing a significant traction from seed stage to Series A to Series B and beyond. Of course, if you just look at the angel funded startups in India, of the 50,000 startups I talked about, almost 20,000 are already angel funded to some extent, either from unorganized angel networks or organized angel networks. And there have been a very large number of organized angel networks that are coming up in India. Every city in India is now actually coming up with the organized angel networks, and they're investing at seed stage companies. But the problem is that when you go from the angel stage to Series A stage, where the first institutional check is written, that's where the biggest bottleneck exists even today. There are roughly about 150 registered VCs in India who are actually becoming active, even though almost about 35 are the ones who are actually writing checks and very active at Series A, Series B stages. And I believe that that's one area where that needs a little bit more attention. We are seeing a lot more new VC funds getting formed, and once that happens, typically that would be the other major thrust that will happen. And currently, I would say that this 20,000 base of angel funded startups are only getting to the next stage of about 500 to 700. So that's a huge bottleneck as of now, which will improve with time. But I think beyond the Series A, the level of funding is obviously much better. That's part of the primary reason why we at IvyCap also like to be at Series A, because we believe that that's the time when one can create the maximum amount of value and has a large selection of startups and has the least amount of competition at that stage. So that gives us an opportunity to really handpick very select companies and then work along with them, which is the model we follow, that we want to really work along with them, add value with them, work very closely with them. And we can afford to do that given our model of engaging the IIT alumni ecosystem, which brings a lot of mentoring support and as well as the support with respect to selection of investments or even at the time of exits. So that's the broader picture of how things are going, and I'm quite excited where we are right now. I believe that India is now offering opportunities, in terms of startups even going global. There are quite a few startups in the B2B space which are actually coming out of India. Of course, India generates a huge amount of tech talent, given the number of engineering colleges and the technology background entrepreneurs. There are a large number of B2B startups, creating products or platforms and targeting the global markets. So in our own portfolio, for example, we have about 15 companies which are really coming from India but catering to the global markets. And that's an opportunity which is only going to grow and scale Even B2B companies are actually becoming unicorns in a very short span of time. Uh, Companies like Freshdesk and a few others who actually started just a few years ago and are now already unicorns and have created substantial value, targeting over 100 countries. So that's where the other opportunity lies in terms of building companies from India but taking them to the global markets. So I'm quite passionate and excited about this opportunity building up, and believe that we at IvyCap are making at least a little bit of contribution to this entire growth, and we will continue to leverage this opportunity. And I also welcome any potential investors who are looking to invest in India and looking to invest in Indian startup ecosystem. I would love to look at partnership opportunities. Of course, if you never invested in India before, it's not easy given the complexities of the market. So we can always discuss what are the best ways to do that. So with that, I would like to thank you once again. I would like to thank F50 Global Capital Summit to give me this opportunity to speak here. And I am always available at Vikram at ivcaventures.com if you have any questions regarding anything. So thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Vikram. It was a great sharing and a lot of insights you gave, right from how your IvyCap venture is contributing to the Indian growth story and looking at global perspective. And you all touched upon many aspects, in fact, that beyond Series A, how, things are happening, and India generates a lot of decks actually because of the institutions and the engineering graduates coming out. B2B companies becoming unicorn is a very interesting topic which you mentioned. We need to look at how that happens in the next couple of years. And finally, you told you are very passionate and building this ecosystem. Definitely, I have been following you and looking at how IvyCap is doing a lot of things, and you have been very involved in many areas. That's a superb actually you shared. Last thing which you touched upon is you always say that welcoming investors and the partnerships. Definitely, I tell the global audience and the investors that having partnership with IvyCap and Mr. Vikram will have a great journey. Definitely and absolutely. So Vikram, many thanks, but I have a couple of questions to you before I wrap up this program. Looking at what you have shared all this time now in the last 20-25 minutes, we have spent time. How things have changed from being an investor you have seen, from services to product, or how do you look at this actually in the future?
India has historically been a services economy, where majority of the startups initially were focused on services. And part of the reason was also around, the investment which was happening at the grassroots levels to encourage innovation. And I think given the funding which is now increasing at the seed stage, at pre-series A, focus on the products, that has encouraged a lot more startups to focus on product and innovation. And added to that, our model of giving back part of our profits as endowments to the IITs and other education institutions, we believe that that will encourage further innovation at the product stage, at very early stages. We believe that you will see a lot more unicorns coming out of India, which are product companies. So that's something I'm quite excited about personally.
Okay. And in your talk, actually, in the last, you mentioned that you're welcoming investors and having looking at the partnership. So my question is, these global investments and the investors, how is that they look at India actually in their perspective, or what kind of a perspective they'll be creating?
That's a great question, because what we've seen historically, that China has been the destination for investors, and of course, given the size of China economy, people have been looking at that opportunity. But I think we're noticing now that over the last 5 years, India offers substantial investment opportunities, especially in the last 2 years, or post COVID. In fact, the focus has shifted to India, and we are seeing a new breed of investors coming in, and the number of investors who started inquiring about the opportunities here. And as I said, I think the challenge is that if you haven't invested in India before, it's not easy. If you try to invest yourself, you really don't know the nuances of the local situations, the
Yes,
language
yes,
used, the government guidelines and regulations, the taxation policies, and lots of other issues, the logistics issues, and lots of other issues. And things are improving. Of course, the government of India has made uh, focused efforts to bring up India in the rank of ease of doing business, and India has come up substantially in that ranking. And I think it's now in the somewhere in the 50s, which started at almost 140 somewhere. And I think that's improvement in ranking that has happened actually is because of focused efforts in terms of infrastructure, the policies with respect to the investments, the exit situation, the taxation guidelines, and creating special tax zones. For example, the gift city in India, in Gujarat, has been created specifically to encourage investors to come from outside of India, to encourage set up base in India, still have all the tax benefits there. And that's just started very recently. But I think, given the amount of effort and focus there in that area, it's actually encouraging a lot more investors to come and set up base there.
okay. So my last question, Mr. Vikram, before we close this the great session, actually, what is your final perspective from now to the next 3 years or 5 years, contribution of the larger to mid-sized startups?
Yeah, so there is an interesting trend which is emerging now, and we are seeing that a large number of startups in India that have raised Series D or beyond, which have raised at least $500 million of capital, are now actually targeting to do IPOs. In fact, most of the unicorns in India are actually they've already announced their plans to do IPOs in the next 1, 2, 3 years, and that will create a next wave of interesting opportunities for investors and even startups themselves, because these companies are also looking for acquiring other companies. So in that sense, any investors who invest in early stage companies, if you are an investor in seed stage, Series A, Series B stages, these create a new set of opportunities for M&A, for exits. So in that sense, I think we are now entering phase two, as I would call it, in terms of the Indian startup ecosystem, where one of the biggest questions which was asked to India startup ecosystem was, where are the exits? And I would say that, if you take the example of IvyCap itself, in the month of March this year, we had three exits, and we already returned about $80 million in a single month back to our investors. And one of those exits was actually called a dragon. And what is a dragon? Just like a unicorn is a $1 billion company, a dragon is a company that gives you an exit in such a way that it's more than 1x of the entire fund. So India has opportunity to create a lot more dragons for the venture capital funds, and therefore exits will encourage a lot more funding to flow in. And I would say the next couple of years are going to be even more exciting from exits perspective.
Thanks, Mr. Vikram. You have shared a lot of insights actually for the global audience, the India's growth story and how IvyCap is contributing to this growth story and the other stories of the unicorns and the startups and the investment ecosystem. It's a superb actually interacting with you, and you have boosted a lot of confidence to this global investor perspective in terms of post-COVID, how India is turning its drive actually towards this ecosystem. I definitely know that there will be a big time story from IvyCap also in the future. Thank you very much for coming as a keynote speaker for this F50 Global Summit. And please invite your the friends and the networks for this program, which is on June 29th. I will share all the details. Thank you very much, and it was a great interacting with you. Thank you, and stay happy and be happy.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Shri.
much.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.